Hello, welcome to another episode of Awakening with Soulspirational. I'm Tish, and with this episode today, it's just another way of us to be able to go a little bit deeper, to look inward, to maybe bring some more conscious awareness to different aspects of who we are. So when I had started my journey some 20 years ago, these are some of the exercises that I did so I could really start making adjustments in my life. And a lot of us have, some of us take issue with the word change. Some of us feel like we don't want to make a change, but we want to make adjustments. All in all, we may very well like who we are, which is wonderful. But when I was going through my divorce, things, I went into the dark recesses of my soul. So I really wanted to get a better understanding of who I was, why I was that way, the different behaviors, that kind of thing. So it had dawned on me that recognizing that I'm both a spiritual being and a human being, then do I have particular traits that are spiritual and others that are learned from my physical environment? So what I wanted to do was to kind of really delineate those, really, separate them out, take a look, and see what I could come up with. So I took a piece of paper and I drew a line down the center, and I made a list of things that I felt as though traits about me, that different aspects that I thought, regardless of where I was born, who my parents were, what my status in life was, that these particular traits I would have regardless. And then the other column, I put in the ones that I felt as though were learned traits. And this is both positive and negative. It's just getting out, taking the time to think about it, write it down on paper. What do I feel I was born with? What do I feel that I learned? Now, as a Scorpio, when I was doing this list originally, I was thinking about the traits of a Scorpio. That's how I got started. So did I feel as though those were, generally speaking, do they fit me? So, I was kind of running through the list. And if you do astrology, numerology, the Enneagram, or whatever it may be, think about some of those things and how you tend to feel as though, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. And I'm not talking about curly hair, blue eyes. Those are things that we were born with as well. And it's your list. You can write down what you want. But I want to get more specific as far as, do you feel as though you were born to take care of people? Are you a nurturer? Do you feel as though that was something you were born with? Or do you feel as though that's what you learned from your environment? It could even be both. It could be that you were born spiritually with these aspects, and the environment in which you lived, whether good or bad, helped you to continue in this nurturing role, for example. What about, one of the things that comes to my mind is being stubborn. So what does that feel like to you, both spiritually and then as far as what you may have learned here in your physical environment? So the reason why I'm asking you to do this is when we get the list, you may find that all the things that you list under the spiritual column, the things that you were born with, again, regardless of status, of location, who your parents were, your siblings, what schools you went to, that these are parts of you, different aspects, that maybe as you are going forward, or even as you're looking backward for healing purposes, a beautiful reminder that these things have always been with you. You may notice that maybe in different confrontations, or when you're looking for a job, different things that we just do throughout life, raising kids, that these aspects have really helped you to get along in life. Now, when we look over at the learned traits or aspects, behaviors, whatever they may be for you, If there's something in that list that is unpleasant for you, maybe you found that a particular something has been a hindrance. It's been blocking you from something else. The great thing is, if you learned it, you can unlearn it. You can learn a different way of being just by bringing conscious awareness to it. Now, some things you may look at this list and say, I'm going to stop this behavior. As I'm writing it, I recognize that I'm doing this and I don't want to do it anymore. And you just stop. There may be other aspects on that list that take a little while for you to make adjustments, to unlearn it, or to learn a new way of being. When you're going through this list, if you feel as though you need help from a talk therapist or a spiritualist, please reach out. Or maybe there's a parent, a sibling, a friend that you can help you to go through this list. Because oftentimes too, when we're doing a list, when we're looking inward, we tend to be our own worst critic. So sometimes having somebody that you really trust in this process, you may write something down and feel as though it may be something negative, where your friend may see that as a positive attribute. And in fact, that's another list that you could do as well, besides what I was born with and what I learned here on earth in my physical life. You can also do a list of pros and cons, different aspects of yourself. And I know when I first did that list, I only had a few things on my pros column, and I had a long list under the cons, because it was the way that I perceived myself. And I did work with a really dear friend, going through this very difficult time, and she was honest, and honestly, in return of her honesty, as I'm going through the cons, as she would rebut those to me, or give me, a different perspective of how to look at them, there was a little part of me that thought maybe there was something wrong with her, because I had heard people say certain things over and over again in my lifetime up to that point. So I thought, what's wrong with her that she sees me, or this in general, being so different than others? And it got me thinking even deeper and deeper. And in fact, I'm going to do an episode on the airways and how we can start cleansing people's negativity, the words that they've given us, our own self-talk, so we can get that out of our system. We don't need that kind of negativity. But it was just weird for me to hear somebody say some of these positive things to me that it was just like hearing a foreign language or something. It wasn't making sense. So I took the information and the beautiful, loving words of my friend, and I let that be part of my process of healing, of opening. Yes, this is just one piece of the puzzle for me personally. Boy, it was so beneficial though. So while I was mulling over and I'm seeing all these negative traits and I'm seeing the positive ones, over time, I came to realize that some of the things on the con list could actually be positive. So it's a matter of context. And some of you may say, well, obviously. Well, it's not obvious to all of us. It certainly wasn't obvious to me in my mid to late 20s going through this process. I needed to figure it out for myself. So going through the process and realizing that depending on the context, I can adjust these different aspects, again, that others told me that were negative. So, for example, being opinionated. I'm still opinionated. I just don't give my opinion all the time like I used to. It was just, I gave my opinion all the time to everybody, whether they wanted it or not. And through this process, that was just one of the things that I learned. That not everybody needs to know my opinion about everything. And really, sometimes it created so much drama, it wasn't even worth it. But I needed to see that front and center for myself so I can start making those adjustments. And that's what I did. And there's still times when still give my opinion, whether somebody asks or not. So all these years later, I'm still tweaking, I'm still adjusting. I don't lose sleep over it at night. But I do recognize that this is a journey. This is a process. And one of the biggest things for me, I think that's really important, is as you're going through the process, be kind to yourself. Don't judge yourself. Don't beat up on yourself. You probably wouldn't do that to a friend. If a friend came to you and if you mirrored the situation, you would be loving and kind. So be that for yourself. Recognize that you are taking a responsibility, that you are becoming more consciously aware of who you are, the way in which you react with others, the self-dialogue, and that as you're going through, you're gonna, if you feel like you need to forgive yourself, forgive yourself. My goodness, all of us make mistakes. And we just aren't gonna get it right all the time. So when we make those mistakes, or, be kind. If you find that, you're kind of moving forward, some of these things are making sense, and you're unraveling some of the mysteries that are you, sometimes we'll even take a step or a few steps backward along the journey. And it's easy to get frustrated when we do that, because it's like, oh, I've made so much progress and here I am, I've stepped backwards. That, I feel, is part of the process too. Sometimes by taking a few steps back, we can be reminded of what it is that helped propel us into healing or adjusting, evolving, learning, whatever it is for you. And when we take those couple steps back, when we simply recognize it, the great thing is immediately you're back on track if you choose to be. And so it's not like you have to double back all those steps that you took backward. You've already made those other steps forward, so you just pick up where you left off, and then you begin moving forward again. Also, when we take steps back, we can see if a similar situation arises again. Are we handling it in the same way that we used to, or have we noticed that that our response is different? One of the things that I have really taken seriously throughout the years is learning how to respond rather than to react. I used to be very reactionary. There are times even people think that I am not listening to them because I am really processing what is going on in front of me so that I can respond to a situation rather than just react from the surface emotions, those emotions. So again, this is about conscious awareness of who you are, realizing what you were born with. So if you're empathetic, do you feel as though you learned that as a result of your environment? Or do you feel as though you were born that way? The love within that you give so freely to others, where does that come from? And again, it may be both. Stubbornness. Were you born with that? Was it a product of your environment? So go through if you choose. See what comes up for you. Kind of an interesting way to look at things. So again, what you're born with, what you learned, your things that you would list under pros, things you could list under cons, and then seeing how balance, right? Things are about balance. So as I was talking about being opinionated, it has really, there definitely been some incidences where my opinions were beneficial in that moment. So I can't say that that's just always a negative. So there were some things, even on the pros and the cons, that I found on both. Listening to people, honoring people. Are these things that you were born with? Did you learn them? Is it a combination? Trust. Where does trust fall on any of your lists? Self-care, self-love. being able to dream and dream big, being adventurous. Where does that fall on your list? So, if you choose to take the time to go through the list, you may find, or both of them, you may find a lot of things coming forward for you. Again, it's just a way so we can make the changes. Maybe you find that, I know for me, life has become more peaceful, especially since I have learned to be far less reactionary. Somebody really has to touch a nerve for me to be reactionary. Otherwise, I really do try to contemplate. So just that alone has brought more peace and contentment into my life. And I just can't even tell you what a blessing that has been. And then it's quieter in my mind even, because again, the self-talk. So some of the behaviors we may find after a situation, we are just analyzing, overanalyzing whatever the situation was that just occurred. And our thoughts are going around and around, and we can't sleep at night because we can't stop thinking about this. And should I have said or done this differently? What about the other person? And it's not that I don't still experience those things, but nothing to the degree in which I used to. And it just feels good. It feels good. And then, you know, for some of us that maybe weren't raised with a strong sense of self, this, to me, I believe is a great way to really start opening up to who you are. And if it's strength, that, you know, maybe your con is that you feel weak, you know what, look back in your lifetime. Do you see other times in which you were strong? That you stood up for yourself, that you stood up for somebody else. Maybe you did something in school that you were petrified of doing. Maybe it was, you know, you had to stand up, excuse me, and talk in front of the classroom. Where did you find strength or courage, the bravery? Because sometimes we can get so caught under the labels that either we give ourselves or somebody else gives to us, and it keeps us in this rut. But I bet if you were to look back over your lifetime, excuse me, you'll find these different situations in which you did show strength. You're born inherently with amount of strength, I believe, from a spiritual perspective. I think about the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy and how she, you know, comes across the Scarecrow, who, you know, he only wants a brain, the Tin Man who wants the heart, the Cowardly Lion who's looking for courage. And I feel like those are all aspects of each and every one of us. And as we know at the end of the movie, these things have been part of her always, always. And I feel like some of us, our yellow brick road, some of ours are just more of a straight line. Some of the others, like myself, I just feel like my yellow brick road has been quite the journey. Twists and turns, and although it is, it has been rather exciting, that's for sure. Life is rarely ever dull. But realizing through this beautiful journey that all that I need in this lifetime, I was born with. What a blessing. What a blessing to come to that realization. And I can tell you that all day long. It's up to you to find it. It's up to you to feel it. It's up to you to realize it. And the more we realize what we have been gifted, what God has bestowed upon each and every one of us, where we can open up to those different aspects that we came into this world with. The different people in our lives may have tried to stifle us or label us or quiet us. Most of us are familiar with the sayings, kids are meant to be seen, not heard, and some kids were meant to be seen nor heard. You can rise up in your power. Each and every one of us deserves to be seen and heard. We deserve to feel loved. self and others. We deserve to feel safe. When we get back to the core of who we are and realizing that we have the tools by which to achieve those things, I don't know, life just, it's turned around for me. It's gotten so much brighter and so much lighter, so much more joyful. And it's not that everything is just splendid in my life. I don't want to sound like that, because that just, no, I have ups and downs like everybody else, but my goodness, to take a lot of that weight off my shoulders that I grew up with, and throughout the years, just to be offloading other people's stuff feels awesome. And knowing that I've had the power the whole time to do that, it's just bringing conscious awareness to it. And that's simply what I'm trying to do with these videos, is to help those that haven't recognized this yet, that are in a place of opening up to you, to feel that divine within, that power, that strength, that love that is within you, the capacity that you have to process, to think, to move forward. You got this. You got this. All right, so that's the episode here on lists, making lists for your inner being. Thank you so much for watching the episode. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to contact me. My website is www.soulspirational.com. You can email me at info@soulspirational.com. And otherwise, until next time, thank you, be well, and namaste.